I've got nothing new for you today. Um, One of the things I came to Arizona almost 7 years ago and started poking around in the space business. And one of the things that I realized is there were so many things happening where people did not necessarily know each other and they did not necessarily know the history of what had happened here. So I'm a magpie, I pick up shiny objects, and I started picking up some history of the exploration of space and the examination of space in Arizona. Well, why do I care and who am I? This is me. Sorry, I was a lot skinnier then. I got, as far as I can tell, the first reference to asteroid mining ever printed in the Washington Post back in 1990. How many of you were alive in 1990? About half the room. So I've been hanging around in this area for a while. Arizona's older than that. This is Stewart Observatory back when there were cows surrounding it in 1916. What I've been able to learn is this was actually the second major building on campus after Old Main was the observatory because of the great clear skies that we have here. And so we had a very credible astronomical program going on for quite some time until this guy showed up. And this is probably the most impactful individual recruit ever made by any university ever. Because we now have, 7 buildings on campus because this guy moved here in 1960. So when Kuiper moved here, he was one of the only top-level working astronomers looking at lunar mapping. It turned out lunar mapping became really important, so LPL became a thing. I'm going to go through these kind of quick. Published the Lunar Atlas, which there's some great examples of it over in the library, and actually got involved in the Ranger missions, which were used for mapping the Apollo landing sites before we sent human missions. So University of Arizona was deeply involved in making Apollo happen. We've been deeply involved in just about, I think it is every planetary mission that has happened since then. We helped fix Hubble with the NICMOS. We built the VIMS for Cassini, which was a beautiful instrument. Everyone knows about, I hope everyone in this room knows about HiRISE, which is basically a spy satellite orbiting Mars, and is still active, many years later. And if you have not seen this book, you should. It is an extraordinarily detailed, beautifully produced coffee table book of photographs from the HiRISE mission. If you don't have a coffee table, just attach 4 legs. This will become your coffee table because the book's about this big. It's enormous. So we've been doing missions since the Phoenix Lander, where we were the first public university to lead a NASA mission. We've had the #1 astronomy program, as everyone in this room knows. Since NSF's been measuring it, we've managed more than 24 telescopes around the world. I'll tell you, we have a failure of branding here. Sorry, I've had a speech impediment popped up last week. We have a failure of branding here in town. Is for my entire career, I thought the Catalina Sky Survey was started on Catalina Island off of Los Angeles. I had no idea there was a Catalina Mountains, so we should brand that a little better, I think. But half the nearest asteroids. My job's over in the optics program these days. We've got the way I like to describe, we're adding 13 tenure track positions in optics right now. Most tier 1 universities don't have 13 tenure track positions. We're adding that to the 60 odd we've already got. It's an amazingly powerful program. Everyone here knows about OSIRIS-REx. How many days till it lands? Do I know? Yeah, 138 days. 138 days, the samples come back to Utah. Obviously, fingers and toes crossed on that. That's a $1 billion mission for which we've been prime there. Giant Magellan Telescope people, I hope everyone's done the Mirror Lab tour. You can sneak into one of those these days, most powerful telescope on Earth. I've discovered some people don't know that the black hole image, a lot of that was processed on SciVerse, which is a NSF program managed here at the university. So that was a multinational, multi-institutional program where a lot of the data processing was managed here at the University, and my Zoom bar is covering the Cyverse logo. Sorry, but Cyverse is headquartered here. We've got so many missions, I'm not going to go into them. There's other people going to be talking about them all day. I do like just talking about NEO-SM with planetary defense, because this is the one when I get a Congress critter or I get, a senior industry executive, I can talk to them about this one and they get this one, they understand what it's about. And so we're doing science lead on that. We've talked about balloons. We do a lot of balloon work here. We're an interesting town is that Tucson has both public sector and private sector stratospheric balloon activities. And there's a lot you can do with balloons. They're powerful, as the Chinese just showed us a few months ago. Space situational awareness, we've got one of the strongest programs in the country. 25 graduate students looking at space situational awareness, what's happening in orbit, what's it doing, what's its capabilities, what might it do, and what can we plan for with that. And then things that are not, as hardware oriented with Biosphere 2. I mean, there's the long history of Biosphere 2 was originally started with space exploration technology as a background. It's taken a long and complicated path since then. It's doing a lot of other things. It is nice to know there is still the Lunar Greenhouse Program ongoing at Biosphere 2, which is going for a while. And just 2 weeks ago, we locked people up again, just like we did 30 years ago. Much smaller Martian analog station. This is the facility in the background of the person in the suit here. There's a lot of Mars analog stations out there in the country or in the world. The neat thing about this one is I think it's unique. I could be wrong, but I think this is the only one that actually is maintaining pressure. So you actually have to be in a pressure suit and an airlock to go in and out of it, which is kind of neat. On the business side, my job's primarily in the private sector. We had a question about that. We paid Deloitte consultants to come do a study of the Southern Arizona space ecosystem a few years ago. And these were the 4 areas they identified as things that Tucson and Southern Arizona were actually quite good at: SDA, space domain awareness, space situational awareness, launch services, metals mining, minerals and resources, and enabling technologies. I don't have time to go through all these in detail. I do want to talk about the metals and mining. This is the idea of extracting useful resources on the moon, on asteroids, on comets, on other celestial bodies, converting them into useful forms for use in space, and maybe bringing platinum home, maybe not. I'm not a big believer in that. But if you start looking at the skill sets needed for space resource development, you draw the Venn diagram of all the different things that you need to know how to do. There is exactly one Tier 1 research university in the United States that has leading programs in all of these areas, and we're it. So University of Arizona should be the world leader, US leader, world leader, on managing space resource development, space mining. We are the only Carnegie Tier 1 university that still has a mining program, and we have a really good one. So we should really be pushing this. We should have master's programs, PhDs programs. There's a lot we can do here. Local space industry, we've got, we just heard from Freefall here in the room. We've got Lunasonde, Worldview, Paragon, the telescope companies. I usually do like to mention Raytheon. They do put more things into space than any other company. They just don't come back with the SM-3 missiles. And as Tim mentioned, or somebody this morning, I'm not sure, we've got a couple of different space medicine research programs going up at University of Phoenix. We're doing some work on space law. We held 2 symposia. This is one here. Bob, you're in this photograph. One here. We held a subsequent symposium in Washington, D.C. last fall sometime. We'll be doing that again. We'll probably wind up with a track in space law in the law school here in the next year or so. And don't forget our friends at PSI here in town. They're not part of U of A, but they're our friends, and they're connected to, and again, every planetary mission that there is. I run a thing called the Arizona Space Business Roundtable. We get together most months and just have conversations and speakers and presentations about what's going on the business side of space here in town. And that QR code works, so grab your cameras and join if you're not on the mailing list. I promise to not spam you. But we have, we've had as many as 70 people get in a room. It was one across the way, and have conversations once a month about what's going on in space in Tucson. I'm not watching my watch, but I think I'm out of time. That's me. I live on email. I live on Twitter. I'll answer questions. The point I want to leave you with, there's a lot of history. You're standing on the shoulders of giants here in Tucson. There's so many different threads of activity that have been going on in this city for 100 years, that whatever you want to plug into, whether it's science, business, policy, what have you, there's probably an expert here on campus, and one of Tim's jobs is to make sure that all those experts get to know each other and connect together through a program here at the university. So with that, thank you very much, and I'll take questions if we have it. Thanks.